Welcome to today's brand origin deep dive, pulling back the curtain on rivalries that shaped the modern tech landscape. You've heard of Microsoft and Apple, but do you know about the hidden tensions, the early fears, and the forgotten moments that predated their famous war? We're not just talking operating systems. We're exploring a clash of corporate identities that began long before the public knew. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, or what you think was the real turning point in their story. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. You step across the threshold, dust motes dancing in the single shaft of light, slicing through a high, grimy window. This isn't the polished atrium of Silicon Valley. This is a forgotten repository, a place where corporate memory is left to decay. The air is thick with the smell of ozone and aging plastic. You've come searching for the true narrative of the Microsoft versus Apple war. Not the headlines, but the whispers, the moments of fear and doubt buried beneath decades of marketing gloss. Your fingers trace the spine of a binder marked Project Cobalt 1980. Inside, handwritten notes detail early, tentative talks, alongside paranoid memos about competitive vectors. The initial feeling isn't one of triumphant origin, but of hesitant steps into a rivalry that would consume everything. A rivalry born not just of vision, but of profound, almost primal fear. You feel it immediately, a low hum, a digital static that seems to emanate from the very walls, hinting at the chaos beneath the surface. Brand historians still debate whether these early, failed collaborative ideas, detailed in these brittle documents, represented a genuine lost opportunity for partnership, or were always doomed by the burgeoning mistrust reflected in memos warning of the other's vectors. The sensory details of this decaying corporate archive, the smell of old electronics, the feel of brittle paper, underscore the weight of this history. Your emotional shift moves from simple curiosity to a growing sense of unease, and the realization that the roots of the conflict are deeper and more psychological than expected. The symbolic thread of static is introduced here, representing the underlying friction and chaos that would define the relationship, foreshadowing hints that the rivalry's intensity wasn't solely about business, but involved a fundamental clash of identities that would leave lasting scars. Welcome to today's brand origin deep dive into the hidden histories that shaped our digital world. You know the icons, the logos, the devices in your pocket, symbols of progress, convenience, and global connection. But do you know how fierce, almost personal battles fought in hushed boardrooms and frantic engineering labs sculpted the very landscape of technology we live in? These weren't just companies launching products. They were empires clashing over the future, fueled by vision and ego. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Also, drop a comment below and tell us where you're tuning in from. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. The subtle competition you might have seen before starts to harden into something else entirely. Ambition sharpens into a cutting edge. This era, sometimes called the GUI Wars, wasn't just about features. It was a fight for the soul of computing. You're walking the halls of development, hearing the constant hum of servers, the clicking of mechanical keyboards, the distinct, often glitchy sounds of early operating systems booting up or crashing. There's a palpable tension. Mid-level managers juggle impossible deadlines, caught between executive demands for speed and their team's exhaustion. Paranoia seeps in. Whispers of industrial espionage, worries about spies in the ranks. The constant feeling that the other side is always one step ahead. The static isn't just a concept anymore. It's literal, appearing as disruptive visual noise on prototype screens, reflecting the breakdown in trust and communication, both internally and between rivals. One major turning point ignites this phase, the launch event for System X, a direct challenge to the established order, promising a more intuitive, visual future. Executives huddle in sterile, tense meeting rooms, strategizing counter moves, their resolve hardening with each leaked detail from the competition. A quirky detail from this time? One development team reportedly kept a rival's machine under a literal tarp when not in use, fearing even idle observation. Brand historians still debate whether the aggressive hiring tactics employed by both sides during this period, often referred to as talent raids, were necessary strategic maneuvers or simply fueled unnecessary hostility, eroding the fragile sense of community that once existed in the industry. The tactics might have secured key talent, but they also sowed seeds of internal dissent, creating factions that would surface years later when the war inevitably shifted. Building on what came before, that intense pressure of the rivalry eventually led to missteps, sometimes even outright failures. You enter a period where the sheen fades, replaced by the feel of something neglected, gathering dust. This isn't just about losing market share. It's a moment of internal identity crisis. The major historical turning point here is the disastrous launch of Project Chimera, a product rushed to market under immense pressure to counter the rival's latest hit. It felt disjointed, confusing, like two different ideas stapled together. You see the physical space reflecting this. Cluttered desks, forgotten prototypes gathering dust in corners. The air feels thick with disillusionment. This is where you find the forgotten figures. The engineers who saw the flaws but weren't heard. The marketers tasked with selling an unsellable dream. Their visions, represented by shelved design files and discarded prototypes, were crushed not just by market realities, but by internal conflict and fear. Imagine finding a fragmented internal memo from that era. Concept viability low. Core identity mismatch. Proceeding due to Q4 mandate. Praying for a miracle. It speaks volumes. The static starts to appear here, a visual corruption overlaying early concept art for Chimera, signifying decay in the brand's once clear vision. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind sinking so much capital into a product that contradicted their established strengths. The lessons learned from this wasn't always positive. Sometimes failure doesn't breed resilience, but a cynical caution that would stifle true, risky innovation in the years that followed. Building on what came before, the brand enters a new phase marked by calculated aggression. This isn't organic growth, this is a strategic strike. You witness a pivotal moment, securing exclusive, long-term rights to a critical component technology, a move that effectively cripples a burgeoning competitor overnight. It feels clinical, almost sterile, in the highly polished negotiation room. The air is thick with unspoken tension, broken only by the quiet click of expensive pens and the rustle of pristine documents. The architects of this strategy, often working in intense isolation, felt the immense weight of expectations, pushing past internal reservations and ethical gray areas. A quirky, lesser-known detail emerges. The lead negotiator insisted on wearing the same pair of mismatched socks for every single meeting, convinced it brought them luck. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind some of the deal's more complex, financially risky clauses, seeing them as unnecessary concessions that sowed seeds of future instability. The static isn't gone. It's simply integrated, a hidden cost within the gleaming facade of market dominance. This strategic triumph, while lauded externally, subtly alienates key talent who felt the move contradicted core values and creates new, precarious dependencies, setting the stage for quiet internal dissent and future challenges hidden in plain sight. Building on what came before, this isn't the white-knuckle race of the early days anymore. You see the rivalry enter a phase of ingrained reflexes, a deep-seated habit that persists even as the ground shifts beneath their feet. The internet arrives, then mobile, then cloud computing. But the corporate muscle memory is stuck in the past. Ad campaigns still throw subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, jabs rooted in decades-old slights. User perception becomes less about true innovation and more about which company seems less like the historical villain. Inside, the debates aren't about pioneering new tech, but about countering the competitor's last move. You meet employees who have seen it all. Their eyes hold a weariness, maybe cynicism, from fighting the same fight for 20 years. They question if the original passion or purpose even matters anymore, lost in the endless back and forth. The aesthetic of the time reflects this. The clunky plastic interfaces, the jarring static of a dial-up modem connecting, the visual noise of early, cluttered websites trying to cram everything onto one screen. This persistent static isn't just literal. It's the background hum of unresolved tension in corporate memos, the visual clutter in product design driven by competitive panic, the frustrating system failures that feel like a manifestation of the underlying instability. A major turning point occurs when one company attempts to enter a completely new market, only to find internal teams still defaulting to strategies designed to thwart their old rival, severely limiting their ability to adapt. Brand historians still debate whether this era of ingrained reflex prevented them from truly seeing the next wave of disruption coming. It's a quirky detail that one company's internal code name for a critical mobile project was reportedly just the slightly misspelled version of their competitor's CEO's first name, showing how personal and entrenched the conflict remained, even when the technology demanded a fresh perspective. The unresolved echoes from this period continue to influence strategic decisions today, a constant shadow making true redefinition a lingering challenge. You stand back, surveying the collection of artifacts and unearthed histories. The war wasn't won. It merely changed form, shifting from courtroom battles and public campaigns to a deeper, more integrated competition layered into the very infrastructure of the digital world. It left indelible marks, often subtle but profound, on the technology that shapes our lives today. The polished devices in our hands, the sleek smartphones, the powerful laptops, the cloud services humming in the background, they all hum with the ghosts of those old battles. You can sense the calculated glitches designed to maintain competitive advantage, the forgotten innovations left behind in the rush for market share, the relentless static that always existed beneath the clean signal of progress. What was the true price of this decades-long rivalry? Not just measured in market share percentages or quarterly profits, but perhaps a certain kind of technological innocence, a road not taken towards more open collaboration and shared standards, A generation of creators and engineers shaped more by the pressures of conflict than the potential of shared advancement. The symbolic static, representing those unresolved tensions and hidden costs, hasn't disappeared. It's merely been compressed, digitized, and layered into the foundation of our digital world. It's a constant low thrum, reminding us of the history etched into the silicon, visible in the echoes of walled gardens versus more open platforms, in the ongoing tension between corporate control and user freedom. Analysts continue to question the long-term impact of this binary conflict on the shape of the internet itself. Is the story truly over? Merely a chapter closed? Or is the current era just another strategic pause, another layer of seamless polish applied to a history deeply riddled with conflict and consequence? The quiet silence left in the archive offers no easy answer, only the faint, persistent whisper of the static, waiting patiently to be heard and understood again, perhaps guiding us toward a different, less adversarial future. And so, our journey through this particular chapter of brand history concludes. We've explored the rise, the clashes, the innovations born from necessity, and the lasting impact etched into the digital world around us. The story of these brands isn't just about products or profits. It's a complex tapestry woven with human ambition, technological breakthroughs, strategic rivalries, and moments of both profound connection and fierce competition. What stands out is how deeply the conflicts of the past continue to inform the landscape of the present. The choices made in boardrooms decades ago, the engineering battles fought over operating systems, they created the binary framework many still navigate today. We've seen how competition can drive innovation, but also how it can potentially narrow the paths taken, leaving potentially valuable ideas by the wayside. The legacy isn't clean or simple. It's a mix of undeniable progress alongside the persistent hum of that historical static. It serves as a powerful reminder that every polished surface in technology often hides layers of history, struggle, and unresolved tension. It makes you wonder about the true definition of technological progress and whether collaboration might not ultimately yield richer, more equitable outcomes than perpetual conflict. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never solely in its latest product release or market valuation, but in the people, the stories, the stumbles, and the enduring impact they leave on the world they helped shape. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.